Thank you, Jason. Thank you, John. Taking a little bit of a turn next, away from NatSec and law enforcement toward electoral polling and a little bit of a look back and a look forward. And Dritan Nesho was on our stage last year doing or showing us a HarrisX poll with regard to the crypto voter and the sentiment. And we sent it far and wide. We used it in our meetings with government stakeholders. It was eye-opening. It really got them to kind of stop and think about whether to pay attention to us or not, and whether to take us seriously or not. And Dritan is back, and we are very excited and lucky to have him. Please welcome Dritan Nesho.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. And before I get started with a poll that we ran last week purposefully for this event and to answer some key questions that are facing the industry, I wanted first and foremost to say thank you to the Blockchain Association for their partnership, for inviting us back, and their data-driven approaches to everything that they do. I'd also like to say thank you to my team for helping me formulate the study and getting it done in record time. So without further ado, we're going to be answering 3 questions with this data, and I will do a flyby, but anyone that's interested can email me or stop me afterwards, and we'll make sure that you have the full information in your hands. The first key question is, did the crypto voter make a difference or a big difference in the 2024 election? And we have some exciting data to show you around that. The second is, what are the expectations around the incoming Trump administration, especially when it comes to regulation or deregulation, and also issues like debanking that have been looming large in recent news. And the third question is, what are the expectations of the community of crypto investors themselves as they move past the 100,000 threshold for Bitcoin and some record-breaking momentum in the industry. So if I'm able to answer all 3 of those questions today, I will have done a good job. And I'll make some time in the end for question and answers as well. Just the particulars around this survey, close to 1,800 respondents, close to 600 current crypto investors or crypto owners, and a solid sample of Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And the data that we'll be presenting are all registered voters, but it's not very different from American adults in general. So first point is that crypto investors or owners are a sizable and important voter group. And this data has been fairly consistent for the last 18 months to 24 months. Over 25% of voters, or over a quarter of voters, currently own crypto, and 33% have owned cryptocurrencies at one point or another. So the exposure to the industry and to the digital assets that have been created by the industry, it's fairly substantive. This is not a micro trend or a micro community anymore. When you're a quarter of all voters, you're a pretty large community, and a community that needs to be spoken to and catered to in important ways. You're not going to be able to see this slide very well, but we'll give you the data afterwards. Crypto investors or owners, they skew male, they skew younger, they skew higher income, they skew more urban, and they are more educated than the average US voter, and they tend to be also more multicultural than the average US voter. Put simply, in political terms, this is more a Democratic voter than a Republican voter. Now, how these members of the community voted will surprise you, and it shows to specific weaknesses or gaps between the 2 different campaigns and the 2 different parties when it comes to speaking to this voter and to this community. And so how did they vote? Well, first of all, they were as energized as registered voters, period. 86% of crypto investors voted in this last election. And they actually over-indexed on voting for Trump. So if in the general election, in the popular vote, Trump was +2, Overall, with crypto voters, he was plus 3.5, plus or minus, and it just rounds out to being plus 3. But it's important to note that many states were very tightly fought, and there's more crypto investors, and there were more undecided crypto investors in each of those battleground states than the margin of difference in 2024, in 2020, in 2016, and beyond. So when you look at it on a local basis, this community and their vote matters even more. Surprise, surprise, voters voted for change. That was 76% of all registered voters, but also 80% of all crypto investors. And voters this time around, they voted on the issues. They did not vote so much on character traits or personality. And you see that over 2/3 of crypto investors voted based on issues, and over 3/4 of registered voters said they did the same. So issues won in the 2024 election. And suffice to say that crypto investors were very satisfied with the outcome of the election. 70% were very or somewhat satisfied, and in general, 57% of all voters said the same. Democrats were not happy, but by and large, Republicans, independents, and members of this community fairly satisfied with how the vote panned out. And this also shows the ability of the Trump campaign to pull voters from the middle, independent voters, swing voters, undecided voters towards it, especially in the last stretch of the election. And again, to highlight the point, 53% of crypto investors thought that Trump and J.D. Vance did a much better job at speaking to the community than the 42% who said Kamala Harris and Tim Walz did the same. And you see it here, even amongst all voters, a noticeable difference, 41% to 33%, who said that Trump and Vance had a better stance on the issues, a better grasp on the issues, a better framework that they were presenting voters than Harris and Walz. So if there's one thing you take away today and nothing else, it's the results of this slide. We know that the crypto community raised close to $150 million for the presidential and down ballot races and deployed a heavy amount of capital. And that's top-down influence within the community and within the market. But did these voters actually vote because of their crypto ownership or investments or not? That is a key question that hasn't been answered up until now by any research or the polling. And we wanted to ask this question head on. And the results are fascinating. For 20% of registered voters, 8% said that their crypto ownership and investment was the main reason for their vote, and another 12% said it was one of the main reasons. Another 20% were a lot weaker, but said that it factored into their decision. When you look at crypto owners, crypto investors, 18% said that it was the main reason for their vote, 24% one of the main reasons, and another 30% said it factored into their decision making. For a full 71% of them said saying that they were swayed by their ownership of crypto in terms of how they decided to vote. This is very powerful because it shows that this community is not only over a quarter of all voters, but this community, while not single-issue voters, and I will show you in the next slide why they're not single-issue voters, they actually view their crypto ownership as being very highly correlated with the top issues facing the country. And the top issues facing the country are, of course, inflation and runaway debt, the economy and jobs. And you see that digital assets, including cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies, are very closely associated with those key factors, inflation and jobs. They're also associated with cybersecurity and taxes, but they're also associated with some negative factors like corruption as well. So this slide tells you a lot about the issue linkage and the issue mapping that these owners themselves have in their mind as they consider the industry and as they consider the ownership of their own assets. But the bottom line is that while they're not single-issue voters, they do very heavily associate cryptocurrencies, digital assets, blockchain technologies with the key issues facing the country, specifically inflation and economic issues. And so to wrap up this first section, it's no surprise that Trump, as he takes over on January 21st, has the edge in terms of the approach to cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies. And you see here, we ask, who do you think has a better approach, the outgoing Biden administration or the future Trump administration? And amongst crypto investors, 59% said the Trump administration, compared to 46% who said the Biden administration. And even amongst all voters, 41% said the Trump administration versus 26% for the current administration. So a lot of the antagonism that came from the current administration, and especially the SEC chair and the SEC more broadly, regulation by enforcement rather than by clear laws, it's registered. And it's not just registered for members of the community, it's registered for all voters as well. So as we look to the Trump administration in 2025, the GOP has the edge over the Democrats, both with overall voters and crypto investors when it comes to who they trust more to set cryptocurrency policies. And this sets up a very positive and collaborative environment between the community and between incoming legislators, regulators, lawmakers, up and down the decision-making chain to really get those policies and those regulations in place that will contribute to the industry. And there's an opportunity for Democrats in this as well. I mean, Democrats, these voters tend to lean Democratic. So when you ask them, if a Democrat had Trump's set of policies when it comes to the community and when it comes to the crypto industry, are you likely to vote for them or not? 56% say yes. So again, while the Republicans have the advantage at this stage, while the Trump administration and the campaign paved the way for what the right tone, tenor, and conversation is for the industry, there's a large opportunity for Democrats to tap into these policies and really win these voters over, because on a latent basis, they tend to be more Democratic voters than they tend to be Republican voters. So then we asked a series of ideas, and I'm sorry, I can't read my confidence monitor, so I'm just going to read it here, but it's pretty much all the big ideas that are going around, everything from establishing a clear framework for digital assets, which 70% of crypto investors are in favor of, and 62% of all voters, to reducing Federal Reserve's interest rates via deploying crypto, 60% of all registered voters in favor of that, creating the Presidential Crypto Advisory Council, 53% of all voters appointing a crypto czar, 51% of all voters appointing pro-crypto regulators at agencies like the CFTC, US Treasury, and IRS, 48%, or statistically half of all voters. And interestingly, creating a US Bitcoin strategic reserve, 44% of all voters. And of course, on the far right, you see 63%, or close to 2/3 of all crypto investors. Where there is a gap in confidence is on whether or not Trump will deliver on all of these promises. And so the administration still has to message appropriately and make sure that at least some combination of all of the issue positions that they took and what has been promises comes through. Otherwise, these voters will be dissatisfied. And as we saw in the previous slide, they might just go back to the Democrats with whom they associate more closely. But generally a positive picture. And while there's a gap between crypto investors and registered voters have started to catch on, or the country has started to catch on, the opportunity that the industry offers and are thinking about it as well. And again, in terms of early reactions to President-elect Trump and his policy decisions so far and his hiring decisions so far, 2/3 of crypto investors agree with that, 53% of all registered voters. So the administration is on a strong footing so far. And then we also asked about the new appointees, Paul Atkins as the chairman of the SEC, David Sachs as the incoming crypto czar. You see that net with crypto investors and overall registered voters, the actions or the reactions are more positive on aggregate than they are negative. And there's still a fair bit of education that has to occur in terms of who these people are, what they're promising the industry, what they're promising the overall economy in order to get them on the right footing and push them through. Again, not a big surprise, but voters are happy that Gary Gensler is stepping down, including 3 and 4 crypto investors. That's not perhaps a very big surprise. However, where the picture gets a little bit more tricky and a little bit more complicated is when it comes to regulation and new issues like Operation Choke Point or this whole debanking issue or fiasco that has emerged. I will preface this by saying that in all of our research that we've done to date, together with the research that we've done with the Blockchain Association, crypto voters have never been against regulation. They have been against regulation that stifles innovation. And I think that what you'll see in these reactions to the questions around the debanking issue is fits within that picture very, very neatly. So when you ask whether or not the crypto industry requires tougher scrutiny or should be treated like other more traditional financial industries, over 2/3 say that it requires tougher scrutiny, and that picture doesn't change among crypto investors. Something like Operation Choke Point or the debanking, about half, a little bit over half, 56% of crypto investors have heard about it, but only 31% of registered voters have heard about it so far. That's normal for an issue like that. And what you're really getting in this reading is the latent reaction to the issue on principle, rather than so much on the facts or on a learned basis. Do you think it's fair or unfair for governments to pressure banks to stop working with businesses that the government deems risky? Here you have a split picture. 53% say fair, 47% say unfair, including a majority of crypto owners. It could flip either way, a few percentage points. But the reality is that the verdict is still out for the majority of observers, both within the community and amongst all of the voters in terms of what's happening. Do you think the U.S. government's strategy of cutting off risky businesses' access to banking services is justified in its efforts to protect consumers, or is it overstepping and harming legal businesses? Again, a 60-40 split here, 60% justified, 40% unjustified. They're not reacting to the facts. The facts are a little bit worse than the principles of what's at play, but ultimately voters react and they indicate intent to elected representatives as much based on principle and instinct and their values as they do on actual facts and actual information. Most voters don't know a lot about the issues that they're reacting to. It's really a minority of voters that is actually learned through and through. And so it's important to take stock of these types of reactions because it means that we require more education in the industry, education for owners, educations for voters at large, and frankly, a constant messaging through groups like the Blockchain Association and other trade groups to make sure that people are properly informed, or at least the issues are properly framed for the public so that they can react in the intended ways. Going forward, do you think the cryptocurrency industry is being unfairly singled out, or has the government approach been fair to protect consumers? Again, here you see a little bit less than 2/3 saying has been fair, about 37% or close to 40% saying it's been unfairly singled out. So the unfairly singled out theme pops, but it's not a majority opinion. Do you think claims from the cryptocurrency industry that they're being targeted with debanking are exaggerated? to exploit the issue for their political goals, or do you think that these claims are accurate? Here you get closer to a 50-50 split. 56% say it's exaggerated, 44% say that these claims are accurate. But again, numbers can shift on an issue like this, 10 points in one direction or another, depending on the information that's provided and the messaging that comes to it. Where the picture becomes more interesting is in the consensus or in the agreement on government actions to be taken on debanking practices. Providing clear guidance for regulators and banks on risk-based approaches to avoid applying blanket bans on specific industries. That was the issue that both registered voters and crypto owners reacted most positively to. Requiring mandatory transparency and reporting for banks to increase accountability and discourage arbitrary decisions. That was the second highest positive reaction as an idea. Providing a government-backed banking platform to ensure essential financial services for debanked individuals and industries. That was third, and so forth. So we look at it through all of the different dimensions, and actually the posture of both members of the community and of general voters is a very constructive posture in general. And then here, perceptions on restrictive actions by government agencies and the crypto industry. Again, it split the reaction between those who say these steps are necessary to protect investors and maintain market integrity, to those who say that they are intentionally applied to target individuals and companies due to political differences, and also that some of these regulators are being overly aggressive and stifle innovation in the digital space. So you can see here it's roughly within the same neighborhood, the reaction, but both members of the community and general voters are on the side of regulation, are on the side of guardrails and protections rather than not. So if Dritan comes out and says the industry is being unfairly singled out, then you've got to back it up and you've got to flesh it out, and you have to invest in explaining and educating both voters and members of the community as to why that is the case. A couple of more slides and then I'll turn to questions, but we had some ideas in terms of actions the crypto industry can take to improve trust of investors and the public. I won't dwell on this too much, but there's three that are putting a fine point on. Working with regulators to establish legal guardrails, transparency in business operations and accounting, creating a set of standards or code of conduct around crypto trading. So again, positive reactions to all of that. There's a third section which I won't go through, but it shows how optimistic the community is towards the future. And frankly, they believe that cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, will outperform even gold. So that's in the set of data, but we'll make it available to all of you. Instead, I'd like to take the opportunity to open it up for a few questions in the remaining 4 minutes. Thank you. Please.
In the future. It's on. Given the data you have here, how do you see future elections be affected by the crypto voter as well? Do the numbers continue to grow? Are we reaching, the max? What does it look like in the future?
Well, I think that as the community continues to demonstrate success and more people enter the community as owners, as investors, the influence of the community will continue to grow. Kristen Smith had a wonderful editorial a month or so ago where she basically said the community has matured, the community has organized, and the community will make a difference. This was before the election, based on the work and the outreach that the Blockchain Association had done, and these findings validate all of that. So I would expect this only to continue to grow, but of course organization is a must, and being able to also speak with the same messages and from the same platform is also very important. Anyone else? All right. I think we might have ended early. Thank you, everyone.